morning, Jason and Lauryn.
Good morning.
Morning.
Good to see you.
So tell me a little bit more about the cases that you've worked on with the clinic.
Yeah. Oh, you want me to go first?
I can go first. I've been working with the Yadkin Riverkeeper on a case based around Alcoa's aluminum factory in Baden, North Carolina. Long story short, Alcoa has operated an aluminum factory for decades, and they dumped a lot of the byproducts into unlined landfills in and around the community of West Baden. Baden is a segregated community because it was a company town, and so we have intersecting issues with environmental justice, racial justice, and it's been really exciting and challenging and frustrating, but also I feel like the clinic has done a lot to improve the conditions for the community there. So even though it's slow, it feels like we're doing something.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And we worked on a case together, but I think something interesting about the case that I got to work on in the clinic last semester was the fact that the client is an international NGO, and so there's that aspect of they're doing so many things in so many different places, but the clinic and the students who work on this case are really the advocates for North Carolina and for what communities in North Carolina need. And so the focus of this project is plastic pollution reduction, and I think we've seen firsthand how plastic pollution affects our communities and our public health. I know you and I went to several of the Khaw River Assembly's creek cleanups. They have plastic trash traps set up in creeks throughout the state, and they clean out thousands of pieces of plastic each month. And so we really got to see how much pollution we're experiencing in North Carolina, and that kind of motivates us in our work to, on the state government level, try to advocate for some kind of policy or legal solution to reducing that pollution.
Absolutely. Yeah, it was so cool for us to work together on the Oceana case. When I was a student, I worked for 2 semesters doing plastics work with Oceana and ultimately through the Department of Natural and Cultural Resources. And that's a state agency that manages state parks, museums, aquariums. And so through Oceana, we were asked to sort of work with these visitor-facing sites and figure out ways to reduce single-use plastics through visitor education and through internal policy change. And so when I was a student, I was working on a pilot program for museums and aquariums to reduce their plastic waste, and then ended up in a fellowship working with the Department of Natural and Cultural Resources, and now am collaborating with the clinic as sort of the client liaison, and worked with you last semester, which was so surreal, and focus more on state parks. So really excited to see how that is continuing. Yeah, do you have any updates on the work that we did last semester? I didn't do clinic this semester, sort of regretting it now. But I know we were kind of at like a big point in our project when I left the case, and I was just wondering what's happened since, if you can share. Absolutely. Yeah, so you and Alex did an amazing job with a survey that went out to better understand what the state is of plastic water bottles and water bottle refill stations across state parks. And then you presented at the Interpretation and Education Summit, shared with the different park rangers, sort of these 2 parts of this plastics reduction initiative, which is to phase out bags and bottles and install refill stations across parks to ensure that people can use their reusable bottles. And so we've been continuing to work on that this semester with a new student team, and we're very excited to have started with the Umstead State Park. And I got confirmation yesterday that we're going to install our first water refill station in the visitor center. So
cool.
Things are happening.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So let's talk a bit more about ways that we've grown personally from this clinic experience. Maybe we can start with you.
Sure.
In what ways have you sort of feel like the clinic has changed the way you've approached the law or your work or anything like that?
The clinic was by far the most formative part of my grad school experience. I did the Master's of Environmental Management program. I was not a law student.
Yes.
So my focus was in environmental economics and policy, but still over in the Nicholas School of the Environment. So doing the clinic for both semesters of my second year, I had taken environmental law my first year and sort of had a bit of an introduction, but was coming into this space, I think, a little less versed. And personal growth, I think I was pretty intimidated by just law in general and what my role could be in these legal processes. And through the mentorship of Michelle and Nancy and Reich, and just the ability to be surrounded by other law students, working with my case partner, Andrew, who is amazing, I think I gained a lot of confidence in sort of the role of a student consultant, and feeling like you could make recommendations and build relationships with the client. What about you?
That was a great answer.
Yeah.
I think you touched on it, but I want to say more about the confidence building aspect of being in clinic. I think, coming into clinic, I had never had a role where I was the attorney on the case and I was explaining things to the client, presenting them with their options, telling them what I thought was the best way to move forward. I had internships at other environmental organizations prior to this that were very, I would say, closely managed. I had a supervising attorney who at every turn was kind of approving what I was going to do, or really setting out what my project was going to be. And I got into clinic, and Michelle and Nancy are like, you need to just try things, and it's okay if you mess up. We'll steer you right if you mess up, but you have the authority and the knowledge that you need to make decisions. And so it took me a while. At first, I was really emailing them every single day, like, is it okay if I do this, or if I send the client this email? And then by the end, I was sort of, just doing things and then checking in with them and being like, hey, I sent this email, or I did this on my project. And most of the time it was like, they responded being like, that's great. I'm glad that you just took initiative on this. So it's definitely helped in my confidence, and I think that will help in my career too, kind of being a self-starter and being able to take initiative on projects and be confident in my own decisions.
I'm so glad to hear that. Yeah, what about you?
Not to copy you guys, but I also think that there's a huge part of the clinic has been building my confidence as well. I'm not a big, raise your hand in class, cold call kind of person. I don't love talking in front of people, but the clinic sort of forced me to do that in ways I wasn't always ready for. But I feel like it forced me to sort of rise to the challenge, whether it's talking at community meetings, public hearings, or even in behind closed doors in the case team meetings, sort of taking on a leadership role in ways that I don't think I would have expected I would have been able to do looking back, a year ago. And I also think that, this idea of, what does it mean to be a lawyer, to practice law, all these things are kind of nebulous, but this clinic experience was an opportunity to sort of see, oh no, this is actually, it's not easy, but it's also, doable. And, we have the skills and we can do it and we can help people. And that's a great feeling. So, yeah.
Yeah.